with Bruce DuPoit.
Hello and welcome. So good to have you with us today. Northern Virginia is home to some of the largest and most violent street gangs in the country. And now these gangs, like MS-13, are moving away from the traditional drug trade and focusing on a new line of work. They are targeting girls of all ages, selling them for sex and punishing them with violence if they try to escape. Pam Brown has the heartbreaking story.
A little girl with a love for sports and a seemingly charmed life with her upper-middle-class family in Fairfax, Virginia.
My mom and dad, they make good money.
Later, a standout student at an esteemed Virginia prep school.
I made honor roll.
But at 16, low self-esteem made her vulnerable.
I was bullied in school. I think that kind of led on to the insecurities.
And then one chance encounter turned her life upside down.
It all started while she was waiting at this bus stop at the Springfield Metro station in the summer of '09. A man was sitting on these steps. She caught his eye and he approached her.
I wasn't sure of myself, and you can tell, and he picked up on that.
He was 24-year-old Justin Strom, a member of the street gang, the Underground Crips.
He approached me and said, "Oh, you look so good, you know, you could make a lot of money."
You felt special.
I felt special.
This teenager we'll call Susan began living a secret life fueled by money, sex, and drugs.
When I started prostituting, I would go out and I told my mom I was going to go to our friend's house. They just thought, "Oh, wow, she's making friends, you know." And you have to come home once in a while. So I'd come home, talk with my mom, laugh, whatever, and then I'd leave and go back to the dirty work.
Susan says Strom and another gang member would pick her up near her home.
He would call me early in the morning and say, "Get ready, we're leaving."
And take her to area apartment complexes and motels to have sex for money, sometimes servicing 40 or more men a day.
You do it until you just can't. One night I was so tired that I just passed out.
She made as little as $20 a client.
One night I made over $2,000 and he handed me $100 out of all that.
To numb the pain, she used ecstasy and cocaine.
You cannot do it without getting high, and then you have to get high to be okay.
Why didn't you just get out when you realized this isn't for me?
He used violence to control the situation. I was so fearful of leaving, you know, because I was afraid of what's going to happen next, you know? Is he going to come and find me? On the other end of this, emotionally, this void that I had of men wanting me kept me coming back. You know, they want to spend money on me.
Susan's parents began to worry, even filing a missing persons report. But no one, not even the police, suspected what was going on.
We never really understood the problem. We didn't believe that it was something that could happen here in Fairfax County.
Susan was the first of at least 10 victims trafficked by these convicted Crips gang members. Working off a tip from a Fairfax County school employee, police were able to bust the juvenile sex ring. Susan had the final word with her trafficker. In September, her testimony inside Alexandria's federal courthouse helped send Strom to prison for 40 years.
My heart was pounding. I felt so powerful, you know, when I went to the podium. I felt like he heard what I had to say.
And Pam Brown joins us now. Pam, this is so heartbreaking. How did this happen? I suspect everyone watching now is wondering, how did this happen?
Well, I first want to thank Susan for her courage in coming out and talking about this and testifying in federal court. I was there when she testified, and it was bone-chilling. Susan's story is one of so many in Northern Virginia. She was a typical teenager who was vulnerable, who suffered from low self-esteem and just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. She caught the eye of Justin Strom, this gang member, and from there her life would change forever. And she said at one point, you know, once she started getting into this, she knew it was wrong. She said she felt so ashamed that she buried it. And by doing that, she was able to convince herself she was okay, and she was able to convince her parents she was okay. And it really went on for a couple years in this vicious cycle.
Did she offer any insight into how the guy she meets at the bus stop is able to lure her into this degrading, damaging I don't want to call it work, but I don't know what other word to use, this activity, this sex work.
It is degrading, and I think the biggest thing is, you know, she really wanted attention, and she liked the attention he was giving her. He did not come out the gate and say, I want you to do this and, you know, have sex and make money. He flattered her. He made her feel special. He sort of lured her in that way. And then he said, well, I need you to do this for me. And she knew it was wrong, but she kind of thrived off that attention, as we heard from her. There was a part of her that liked that. It filled a void that she had. And also there was the fact that he really controlled her. Once the charm wore off, he started using violence and threats and intimidation to keep her into it. And another factor is she became hooked on drugs, as we just saw in the story. She used these drugs to numb the pain, and then the only way she knew how to get the drugs was through him. So it's a very complex issue. It is not black and white. I know anyone watching this would be saying, oh gosh, why didn't she just run to get help? It is not that easy.
And they're saying, where are the parents?
Where are the parents? And another factor in this is he would come pick her up near her home. So he knew where she lived, and he would threaten her, I'm going to tell your parents if you don't come with me. And as I said earlier, she was so good at lying to her parents and convincing them it was okay that her parents really thought that, oh, it's great, my daughter is going out, she's making friends. You know, this was happening during the summer. So she really was able to pull the wool over their eyes.
Set up part 2 of your series.
So in part 2, we really take an in-depth look. How does this crime happen in Northern Virginia? We're talking about some of the nicest areas in Fairfax. So we look at the inner workings of this horrific crime, and also we hear from one of the convicted gang members who talked to us about how this enterprise happens.
I live in Fairfax, one of the richest counties, and it happened to me.
From the suburbs to the streets, a 16-year-old teenager we're calling Susan sold for sex by a Northern Virginia gang.
It like takes your soul. I feel very broken.
She serviced countless men at area apartment complexes, controlled by the constant threat of violence from her trafficker, Crips gang member Justin Strom.
He was aggressive.
Strom is one of 12 gang members put behind bars in Northern Virginia for child sex trafficking. But with an estimated 5,000 gang members in our area, police say that's just the tip of the iceberg of an alarming trend.
It's very prominent, much more so than we originally thought. Unfortunately, there's definitely victims out there right now today that are being exploited by the gangs in Northern Virginia.
The FBI says gang members are targeting vulnerable young girls in public and on social media sites. Strom and his gang sent nearly 1,000 messages from a bogus Facebook account trying to lure girls in.
They can come right into your house. They come in through the fiber, they come in through the wire, and they can visit you unseen by us.
In an exclusive phone interview from federal prison, one of Strom's accomplices shares his unique insight, telling us he and other Crips gang members would expect the girls under their control to sell themselves on the internet.
So you would advertise the girls?
They would do all that themselves.
What would they do?
They'd take pictures and post them.
On like Backpage.com?
Yeah.
And he says the gang uses the girls to hunt for new victims and build trust.
Women will talk more to a woman than they'll talk to a guy. Everyone who got recruited somebody else. Like go on Facebook, talk to them and stuff like that, and tell them, you know, like, you look pretty.
It even happens in schools. And these court documents, one victim says another girl in school recruited her, telling her she was a confident, pretty woman who could make lots of money.
It's really every parent's worst nightmare.
But to gang members like these convicted traffickers, it's a low-cost, high-payoff enterprise. The younger the girl, the more money they make, says U.S. Attorney Neil McBride.
Gang members literally taking girls as young as 12 or 14, going to construction sites, going to 7-Elevens, going to places where they believe there was a paying customer base.
Authorities say these convicted MS-13 members sold girls for sex at the Budget Inn and Falls Church. This receipt shows it even happened the day after Christmas. Budget Inn manager Anil Patel.
A positive ID was taken, and then after we don't have actually no control whom they bring in the room and what they do in the room. It's kind of under privacy, you know, we can knock the door and see what they're doing inside.
And it could be happening in your backyard, just as these residents in this nice Lorton neighborhood. They were shocked to learn Strom, their next-door neighbor, was running the juvenile prostitution ring right out of his basement.
I did not think that there was a really serious criminal enterprise going on. I think they must have gotten them in at night in the back door.
No matter where it's taking place, authorities say the victims can be tough to spot.
They're dressing like high school age girls that just got out of school.
It happens right in front of you and you don't even know it.
Even Susan's parents didn't know what was really happening.
They don't know that life. Coming from a middle-class family, they don't know anything about it. It's not there to them.
As Strom went on to traffic at least 9 other teenage girls, Susan managed to free herself from his grip. But the emotional scars still run deep, tainting her relationships with men, even those closest to her.
My relationship with my father, horrible. You know, I feel uncomfortable around him, even though he's never done anything harmful to me. I struggle around men. I struggle so much being around men. It's so hard for me. You know, I'm always thinking, are they thinking this? You know, or are they looking at me a certain way because of what I've been through? You know, it's always there.
So heartbreaking and really almost unbelievable. Does Susan, the name we're giving this woman, really believe that the bullying that she encountered earlier in her life was kind of what set her up for what would happen later?
It seems like that was the impetus in talking to her. You know, she grew up, she had problems in her family just like anyone else. She had, you know, problems as a teenager just like any other 16-year-old. But I think the bullying really was a tipping point in making her vulnerable and really lowered her self-esteem. And I think that's why she was so receptive to the attention that Justin Strom was giving her.
To what extent are gangs pivoting from drugs, guns, whatever has been the the income producing activity until recently, pivoting to sex? How big a part of modern gang life is this?
Right. Well, we don't want to give the wrong impression. They're still involved in violence and the drug trade and so forth, but they are shifting away from it gradually because they see juvenile prostitution as this low-cost, low-risk, high-payoff enterprise. Instead of smuggling in illegal contraband, they're able to go out, pick a girl up off the streets, and make hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars a night, week after week, month after month. So they're seeing this as an opportunity, a business opportunity, which is just really sickening that they're preying on these young girls and looking at them as dollar signs.
And someone is on the paying end of this. Some, desperate or sleazy men, whatever, who at some level have to know better. But they're still going ahead with it because of whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, when we heard in Susan's story, she was sleeping with sometimes 40 or more men a day. You wonder who's actually helping to make this business happen. But it's out there. And actually, the reason that I was first tipped off to this story was someone gave me a phone number. They said this is a call service for these young girls for this enterprise that the gang members are running. And so we called this number, and sure enough, a woman picked up and was screening us to set up an appointment with one of the young girls.
What are police doing?
Police are aggressively going after this. This is an alarming trend, as we've mentioned, and they're just in the past couple of years are catching on to this enterprise. So the FBI, Homeland Security Investigations, and local police are working hand in glove. They're on the streets every day sharing intelligence. They've created the Northern Virginia Human Trafficking Task Force to aggressively go after these criminals and give them stiff sentences. And local police are actually within the next school year, they're going to be going to schools, talking with teachers, talking with administrators, and educating them. The biggest way to combat this is raising awareness, and they're going to actually use part of the story, Susan's story, to help raise awareness among schools in Fairfax County.
And I know you and the photographers, the others that you've been working with on this story, have been at this for nearly a year now, so this is really important stuff. Thank you very much for being with us and for sharing Susan's story.
My pleasure.
We'll take a break. Back with more News Talk right after this.